Hi there, it's Julie Leigh with Issaquah Myofascial Release. Welcome back. Today we're going to go over a couple of treatment options for tightness in the hand, the thumb web space, and into the wrist and the forearm, depending on which of the techniques you decide to use. So if you're spending a lot of time typing or holding instruments, or if you've been scrolling through your phone, which we're all guilty of, being in this fixed position with your hands in flexion can create a lot of tightness and weakness, cramping, spasms, and just a general source of discomfort at the base of the thumb and into the hand. And you can find that your hands are fatigued when you're holding objects and tools or just using them repetitively throughout the day. If you find yourself just constantly rubbing your thumb web space, there might be something a little bit more effective you can do. My right hand's actually pretty tired today, so I'm going to treat this hand. Decide which hand you want to start with, and the first option is going to be to take the opposite elbow and just identify the areas of tension in the hand. So starting around the wrist and the base of the hand, take a couple of swipes towards the hand and just identify where it's tender, where it's tight, where you kind of feel some sensations that indicate that might be a good area to spend some time on. So take at least 3 gentle but firm swipes away from the wrist towards the fingers. And just notice what you feel. As I get right onto the thumb, I've kind of found my spot. Try to pick 1 or 2 spots that need some sustained attention and just shift your body weight into that. You're not forcing, you're not grinding your elbow down into your hand, but just shift your weight gently until you feel like it's just enough pressure to engage. If you find that it's too intense, then just shift your weight back. But try not to force your arm or your elbow into your hand. Just let gravity do the work. Take a few deep breaths and just soften into that. As you exhale, just imagine you can soften your body and soften your wrist and your hand and the thumb. Just allow your elbow to sink deeper into those areas of tightness. If you feel like you need a little more pressure, you can shift your weight forward. And even like making hands on a clock, this being 12, 1, 2, as you kind of shift your weight into different directions, you might find that it changes the line of pull and engages into different areas of the hand, or maybe even the forearm. As I wait through here, I can actually feel it in the back of my wrist and even into my forearm, so I know I'm in a good place. Sometimes treatment produces therapeutic pain, it's like a hurt so good, and that's different than forcing the barrier. So only you know what you feel and what's too much. If you can't talk or breathe, then it's probably a little too much. Ease your weight back off, okay? But try to stick with those spots as long as you can. Try to start with 2 to 3 minutes and then build 3 to 5. And then if you can build your tolerance to 5 to 7 minutes, that's a good place to be. I usually tell people to try to find some songs or create a playlist. And if you can hold it through 2 songs, you know you're about the 5 to 6 minute range, and that's a good place to be for fascial expansion and taking pressure off the area. Okay. If you feel like you've had enough, ease your pressure off. Shake out your hand, shake out your elbow. The second option would be to engage your hand into a flat surface like the edge of a table or a countertop. And then with the opposite hand, apply some traction to the thumb. So I'm following that same line of pull as the thumb, and as I do that, I feel that immediately into my forearm. If you stand up, you might get a different amount of stretch or pull into the wrist and into the forearm. You can do it seated, it's a little more awkward. It just depends on what you're getting at. As I'm sitting, I feel it more on the outside of my forearm. When I stand, I feel it more on the forearm. So try it both ways and see which is easier for you. You can also compress that thumb web space and kind of traction away gently. And just try to sit with it. This can be really intense through the forearm, but really effective as well. This is when you're going to have to build your tolerance to holding for 5 to 7 minutes. It can be a challenge to get there. You can explore that. And then the third option would be just to manually treat your thumb or get into the finger. So if you find a lot of tension in this thumb web space, you can literally compress it together with the opposite hand and kind of traction away from the wrist. That's to do with your elbows supported on a surface and your arms won't have to work so hard. You can also compress and provide compression. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, those joints don't love traction, so gentle compression works best, but try a combination of both. Sometimes gentle compression, so I'm compressing my fingers together, but I'm also compressing my thumb into the wrist, versus compressing my fingers together and then pulling away from the hand and the wrist, which should be traction. You can unwind and release those areas either way. See what feels better for you. Sometimes it's helpful to know which movement in the hand and then the thumb feels restricted. The thumb is a saddle joint and it's shifted on a 45-degree axis. So this is flexion, this is extension, this is adduction, and this is adduction, and then this is opposition. If you know one of those movements in particular is limited for you, then that might help you decide which treatment you might need, whether it's a combination, which can be really helpful. Using the elbow first to break up some of that deep tightness in the thumb can be really helpful. You can hang out there for a couple minutes and then follow up with some compression and traction. Can also be really effective. But explore one of those three, and if you have questions, I'm just an email away. Julie at Issaquah.mfr.com. All right, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.